If today's young people are to become informed and responsible citizens, they must understand the places where they live, and they must have educational opportunities based on real-life issues that encourage them to be stewards of their own communities. It may start with a walk in the woods, watching the leaves fall, listening to the music of a waterfall, finding an animal track in the snow. It's the first time a place is really noticed, felt, seen, the first step in getting to know your own neighborhood.
There's a fundamental principle here, which is that first it's important to know someplace really well. If you know someplace well, then you begin to care about it, to be more active in its stewardship. So that's a progression from knowledge, a sense of place, to a sense of caring, and then to stewardship.
Inspired by this vision of students learning the important concepts of conservation and stewardship, 3 public and 2 private organizations, Marsh-Billings Rockefeller National Historical Park, the National Park Service Conservation Study Institute, Green Mountain National Forest, Shelburne Farms, and the National Wildlife Federation formed a unique partnership to develop a place-based educational program using place as a way to integrate learning, moving teachers and students out of the classroom into their communities. The program is called A Forest for Every Classroom, Learning to Make Choices for the Future. The partners see in this program an effective strategy for building long-term partnerships among local organizations, public land agencies, and schools while strengthening citizen engagement, community vitality, and the stewardship of public lands.
The idea behind the Forest for Every Classroom was to invite teachers and their students and members of the community to really use those public lands as learning environments. The partners came together really with the concept that in collaboration between government agencies, non-government organizations, and the community, we could in fact do something together that none of us could do alone, and really work with the next generation of leaders that would be involved in conservation both on these public lands and in their communities.
A Forest for Every Classroom was to be a completely new way of reaching teachers, and through teachers, their students.
The overall goal of the program is to engage students within a sort of real-world learning opportunities that are community-based, so that the program encourages teachers to build connections between students' learning and community engagement.
The partners developed a working strategy based on current educational research that involved a major shift in the approach to teachers' professional development.
So we decided early on that it was a really great idea to work with teachers, because every teacher meets many students year after year, and that in fact that was a long-term investment both in those individual teachers and in their career as a teacher.
Focusing on professional development and enhancing teacher practices, the program consisted of a series of 4 two-day intensive workshops over the course of 4 seasons, including a week-long summer institute. Immersing teachers in the natural and cultural history of the forest and challenging them to broaden their understanding of the concepts of place-based education, service learning, and the woodland ecosystem. Teaching teachers how to use public lands, their communities, and the surrounding environment as an extension of the classroom.
I participated in the Forest for Every Classroom workshop, a series of workshops and classes that spanned a year's time. It was a workshop that I entered with no previous knowledge whatsoever. All I knew was that I was going to be learning about our Vermont forests.
Teachers work with resource specialists, visit public forests, and learn about different kinds of local businesses and traditional regional crafts associated with forest products. The program includes a panel discussion with participants representing a wide range of interests and opinions. The panelists are challenged to demonstrate civic dialogue so that all points of view are listened to and considered.
And so we work to bring in specialists, resource specialists, whether they're natural resources or cultural resources, and we bring in folks who do things like reading the forested landscape.
And the thing that I like about what I'm doing now in the Forest for Every Classroom is that we're taking a group of teachers each year through this, year-long program, one workshop in every season. And then we don't drop them at the end. We put them on a listserv, we continue to have workshops and just stay with them. And then we get out in the communities that they work in, and so whatever they're doing, we are right there helping them however we can.
This was very different, and it felt very different from the very beginning, in that it was so sort of multidisciplinary. I mean, we were out there learning about trees and soil. I learned a huge amount about the forest. I had no training in this at all, so it was wonderful to have professors from the University of Vermont coming and giving us some lectures and taking us out into the field.
The course offers a variety. One was bringing in, quote, the experts, either in forestry or geology or amphibians, whatever it may be. And so to be exposed to those people who really know their stuff and have insights that I certainly don't have was valuable, and to rub shoulders with those people have spent a lot of times looking for things and seeing things that most of us will just overlook.
Perhaps the one workshop that really I have used a great deal, and in fact I'm using the book by Tom Wessels on reading the forested landscape, and having kids understand that they can actually go out and read the history of our land use by looking carefully, and that there are clues there in terms of things like stone walls or fencing that was put up.
The workshops supplied in-depth exposure to all aspects of the forest, from understanding animal tracks in winter and reading the cultural history of a place in the forested landscape, to a wise use of forest resources. This encompassed a detailed course of study that enabled teachers to take what they learned and design a curriculum that they would then take back to their classrooms and engage the students in lessons about the place they live.
The classroom components were particularly demanding, but it was probably the best professional development that I've ever participated in.
Actually, it was quite structured in terms of really using the Vermont standards as a place for us to look at curriculum and choosing some specific standards in terms of, in my case, because I teach English and global studies, writing standards, history standards, economic standards, and sustainability standards, and being able to use the forest as a classroom to convey a great deal of that work.
We were given very clear guidelines of what a place-based education unit should look like. From the very start, we met with experts on place-based education who gave us a wonderful foundation of what that really meant in our classrooms.
But also having the opportunity to devise something that I thought was valuable, having time to myself to really reflect on what would work best in my classroom in Pomfret. And so I was given time to do that and develop my own curriculum, and I really appreciated that ability not to be dictated to, but to be allowed to go in directions that maybe were a little bit unusual. And I think the outcome of that has been pretty positive.
Teachers took the new content that they learned in the program back to the classroom, and using Forest for Every Classroom resources, the curriculums that they had designed, and the new teacher practices, put the concepts of place-based education and service learning into practice with their students.
It has definitely been reinvigorating. As a math teacher, I'm constantly searching for ways that I can make real-world connections with my students. The other day when the students were working on their forest math, one of my students said to me, "Are these real numbers we're working with?" And I said, "What did I say to you when we started this unit?" "You said, Mrs. Pelkey, that this was all real, that this is our world, that we were working with the real deal, the real data." It has invigorated my learning and my teaching, I think, because my students get so excited about what they're learning in math class.
think it does make a difference. It does? Well, I don't know.
Part of what we ended up developing in our course was having kids go out into other areas in the community, for instance business in the community, who happen to use the forest. Taking the kids to another business in town, a furniture maker, who is very much in support of sustainable forest use, and most of the furniture that he makes, the wood comes from certifiably sustainable forests. And that was a wonderful eye-opening experience, I think, for our kids, in that they saw this real care about our natural environment. And it was in our community, that people in our community are concerned about how forests are used and are interested in promoting practices that will make sure that they'll be there for us for future generations.
To assess the achievements of A Forest for Every Classroom, the partners sought an independent evaluation of the program's first 2 years. The evaluation focused on the program's effectiveness and its impact on teachers and teacher practices. The evaluation reported that the strengths of the program include building connections between public lands, schools, and communities, offering diverse and balanced perspectives, developing a network of resource professionals, and engaging students as stewards through service learning.
It's a great model for any ecosystem. It could be a desert for every classroom, a watershed for every classroom. We chose a forest for every classroom because so much of Vermont, where we're based at this point in time, is covered with trees and covered in a forested ecosystem. So the initial model, although it's based on forests and forestry, is easily transferred to any other ecosystem.
We've gotten tremendous feedback about the model, and the feedback that we've gotten from teachers and from our evaluation has convinced us that this is a model that can make a difference not only in children's lives but in educational quality and in the lives of communities. We're confident that when children get an opportunity to go out and participate actively in their community on public lands, that they develop a strong sense of place, and that sense of place gives them a belief in their own future and a belief that they can make a difference in their community. We're also confident that when we provide teachers with the skills and the confidence to take kids out of the classroom and into real life settings, that their quality of teaching improves, their enthusiasm for teaching improves, that there's greater teacher retention. So we think this model of project-based learning on public lands has potential to make a difference all around the country.
The participants in A Forest for Every Classroom demonstrate that when young people get an opportunity to participate actively in their communities and on public lands, they develop a strong sense of place, and that sense of place gives them a belief in their own futures and that they, as individuals, can make a difference in their communities. For further information, please contact Pat Strawn, Program Coordinator, Shelburne Farms. Contact them by phone 802-985-8686, extension 43.